Reality Redemption is back.
And we are not talking politics on this episode.
Yeah, I know. Imagine that.
We need a break.
We need a break, yeah. Just too crazy right now.
And we got a break.
We got
to read a book.
Right. Hey, I did want to mention we are a featured podcast on Amazon Podcast this week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
All right, moving up in the world.
So book we read.
And that's the reason why we get authors on the podcast.
Correct.
Because we're a featured And welcome.
So we have Ra Ray here who wrote the book Weird Kingman.
Weird Kingman, which is a very appropriate title.
Because Kingman is weird.
It is weird, yeah. And this is the perfect time of year for it, right? About 2 weeks away from Halloween.
Yes.
And
October, the scary month.
Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Weird Kingman.
Yes. All right. So let's get into this. What brought about this book?
What brought about this book is that I was 10 days out from having major brain surgery. And this book was really a piece of therapy for me in order to calm my anxiety before having this major procedure done. I had a craniotomy on August 27th of this year, about 6 weeks ago. It was a 7-hour procedure to fix a brain aneurysm that a year ago tomorrow had caused me to have a near-death experience. On top of that, I have a brother who's been living in the wilderness as a shaman for 25 years now. And this was his request for me, should I pass or not be able to tell stories anymore? Please write these stories of our childhood. Please write this book. So I spent 3 days writing this book. I spent 2 days editing the book and another 2 days doing the layout and design and the publishing work to put this on Amazon so that we could have it. If I made it through my surgery, it was going to be published after that about a week or two later. So the book's been out a little over about a month now. And I've sold out this weekend on books. I have more books coming in time for Halloween, which will be super cool.
Yay!
And this has been such an amazing process. The people that I have met through this book, the stories I've been told, I don't know how to explain how grateful I am for everyone being so accepting and just for reading this and for being able to share this outside of my own family.
Well, it's a really fun read. It's a fun, easy read. I mean, and it's a page turner too. Like I was like, oh my gosh, what is gonna?
What happens next?
What is this story gonna be about? I'm like, these are some crazy stories.
Well, and the thing about these stories is that all of these stories are entirely true, and the majority of the stories are things that I experience firsthand. So I consider myself not a paranormal believer, but a paranormal experiencer, because I'm equally a skeptic and someone who's been educated in science. So there's this very odd fine line balance that is between these unexplainable paranormal things I've lived through and what science can or cannot explain about it, that I kind of live with. So, and this is the first time I have let members of my community in Kingman know about these stories. I've shared some of these stories elsewhere in the world, but this is the first time I've brought these stories back to my hometown. So.
Oh, okay.
Now, you said you wrote it in how many days?
Well, in total, to write it and have it ready for publication so you could buy it, it took me 7 days total. Because I had to boogie on down to Phoenix and get this brain surgery done. So,
but
that's pretty impressive.
But did you keep anything in journals over the years?
The only story that was pre-written in this book was one of the very last stories in the book about my near-death experience that happened a year ago. That one was pre-written. Everything else was just stream of consciousness download sitting and typing 75 words per minute for 3 days.
That's like some Shining shit when he was out
That's
there. All work
that's
and no play.
impressive typing.
Makes Johnny
I've
into
been-
hole.
that's impressive typing skills.
Yeah.
Too. 70, I don't even think I can do half of that.
Well, I've been ghostwriting and publishing now for about 20 years.
Oh wow!
And this is kind of one of the first books. I've had a couple, but this is one of the first books that were my books.
Yeah.
And this is the first one that I think anyone's taken interest in and read. So, but I've been writing in this style, which I call microburst publishing, for about 20 years now, where it's almost like just a download, and in 7 to 30 days, I will have a complete book ready to buy.
Wow.
So.
That's pretty impressive.
So,
That's one of my party tricks.
but are the thoughts in your head though, like in your memory bank? Like, do you have this book like ready, and then all of a sudden, okay, I'm ready, download? Like, how long did you think about writing this book?
I did not think about writing this book.
That's impressive.
It's like I have to do this, and you just kind of start decompressing those memories and just letting them come in chronological order.
Wow. That's talent
So
right there.
your brother that's a shaman, is he and lives in the wilderness, is it still here in the Kingman area?
No, he does not live in the Kingman area.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, it's got to be rough in the summer, huh?
No, he
if
lives in the
lived-
forest. He lives in the forest.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So how is that for him? I mean, because there's times, given everything that's been going on in the world over the last 8-10 years, that I've thought about that. Like, wouldn't it be great if I just went out to the wilderness, lived like Grizzly Adams, made friends with a bear?
The animals.
Well, that's exactly what he's done. I mean, he's living a fully spiritually engaged life. He has been accepted as a family member of a group of deer who sit with him at the campfire at night.
Wow.
He knows who's the aunt and who's the daughter and the cousin twice removed and everything else. And he sometimes sends me these audio recordings, and it's him sitting around a campfire telling me campfire stories and telling me, here's one, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's like, they're all here. My whole family's here of deer.
So what state is he in? Are you allowed to tell us that? Or
He's in somewhere in northern Arizona.
oh,
That's all I
okay.
know personally. He
So,
doesn't tell me exactly.
yeah,
He's
so
in the
it's at
state.
least cool.
He's kind of in the hot spot where there are UFO and Sasquatch sightings. Arizona.
Okay. I think I know like around the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. The air is it like I remember and I believe you referenced that in your book, the story about that the movie Fire in the Sky was made
Up there near Sitgreaves National Forest.
Yeah, the guy who
Somewhere in that proximity. So it's kind of
Yeah.
strange that he ended up in the same place where Travis Walton, was abducted or in that
Travis Walton is the guy
area.
in the Fire in the Sky Fire in the Sky is about.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, correct. Yeah.
So yeah, my brother's living out there with the aliens and the Sasquatch and the deer.
Cool.
And he's having a wonderful time.
Having the time
Probably,
of his life.
and sometimes I think maybe we're the crazy ones for living, in civilization.
Right? Maybe we are, know.
Disconnecting from social media and everything and all the other
It
bullshit.
is kind of crazy to put up with the stuff that we have to put up with,
Well,
I mean, honestly, if you look at it like that, he's like completely free.
he has a flip phone and he takes the battery out of it. And maybe once or twice a year, he goes somewhere where someone has built some contraption to get a signal, puts a battery in, sends me a message, and that's our year. That's,
He's like, hey, letting you know I'm okay.
It's usually an audio recording of some sort.
Okay.
And I think there's maybe a 2-minute limit for whatever reason, his phone plan or something, but he does
Right.
not have a phone.
Yeah.
He is not, he does not have a house.
Yeah.
He does not have to pay a gas bill.
Yeah, he doesn't have to pay any bills.
Yeah. No inflation there.
I know, right?
And he is in the stories in Weird Kingman. And if you read Weird Kingman, he is Carlos in the book.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's kind of a made up name.
Well, sure.
Okay.
If you are someone who knows me personally, it is very, very easy to suss out who everyone is. I made it easy enough that it's like, okay, it starts with this letter or what have you.
Right.
So, but I really think that the things that we experience in our childhood, my brother really took that to heart and really took it seriously. And yeah, he's a true believer who's out there building sweat lodges and things like that. He
I
does
did
some
a
of that
sweat lodge
stuff.
one time. I went and did one, and it was an amazing experience. And it was done by Native Americans.
So the first 10 years that he was gone, he wasn't living by himself. He had lived with Hopi elder women who taught him a great deal. And he did a great deal for them and members of their community. So
cool.
So just amazing, wonderful stories he'd tell me about, his time with the elders, and much of it very paranormal in nature, things like telepathy that they had taught him, and just teaching him how to help people through sweat lodge ceremonies, working with things like peyote.
Mm-hmm.
So
that'd be kind of fun.
Kind of fun.
Why do you think your family in particular is attracted to these paranormal activities more so than the average person?
Well, who's to say that? I mean, I think every single person has probably had at least one paranormal experience in their life.
Yeah, I mean, I have.
I have.
Yeah, so
there's three of us here, and all three of us have had at least one paranormal.
Yeah, but you've had a lot more than we've had.
Oh, yeah.
We're just overachievers,
Yeah. Is your brain on a different wavelength than us? Are you more connected to it?
Hers is probably more open.
Maybe you're more open to receiving it than the rest of us.
Maybe it's genetic. Maybe it's location based.
Maybe you're a better person than us.
You did grow up here your entire life, so
yes. Maybe it's in the water.
Snow's been here 20 years?
Yeah.
I've been here a dozen. 22. So
22 years, yeah.
So maybe we haven't had the time yet to experience all this.
Right.
Maybe that's it.
And and to be fair, sometimes we have closed our minds off to things in Kingman because they get pretty crazy.
Weird.
Yeah. I guess we could say. You know what, though? I like the word weird.
Yeah.
Like, I like that the book name is weird. Like, I prefer to, instead of using the word weird when you're trying to, like, talk negatively about something being weird, I'd rather use the term, like, creepy. Because let's save weird for the good people. I mean,
yeah, let's take that word back.
I know.
You want to gatekeep weird now?
Yes, I do.
I think we should take weird back.
I know. Taking it back.
And what better place to take it back than Kingman?
Right.
Making Kingman weird again.
Make Kingman weird again.
Okay, so let's start. Early history. Now, I've heard this. This didn't come from the book. I've heard these stories. Like there was a possible UFO crash very near here.
And have you heard these stories from local people, or more in the news?
It was more just like a passing rumor with someone who didn't go into as much detail as you did in the book.
Someone local?
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, apparently, in May of 1953, here in Kingman, Arizona, there were witnesses that said that there were up to 8 UFOs dogfighting over Kingman. One of those UFOs crashed and burned up over in the Wallapai Mountains, started fire in the Wallapies. Another one I'm not clear if it crashed, but it was completely intact, and there's not much said about that one other than there was a second one. And then there was a third one that is the one that we often hear about in the news. Like in August, there was some more new information about it, where allegedly it had crashed. The military had sent out a bus with blackened windows full of like 40 military guys, researchers, to research this. They went out to the location. There was a craft that was approximately 30 feet long and 3.5 feet tall, made out of some kind of material that looked somewhat like brushed aluminum, but they couldn't identify. And they processed the site, basically, like a crime scene. And then before they left the area, they were sworn to secrecy, never to speak about it. They were told that it was just a secret government project. So, in 1980, a man named Arthur Stansel was on the program In Search Of, and he had gone on anonymously under a pseudonym. And he was talking about this Kingman UFO crash, that he had gone out there. He was one of the military guys that went. He had been working over at the Nevada testing site. And he was a dude out there who, they had all these creepy model homes, these really weird model homes out there at the testing site. And when they do the above ground testing and the mushroom crowd blows off, Arthur was the guy who would set up these model homes with the creepy mannequins in it. The mushroom goes off and he sees, well, what does a nuclear bomb do to a home?
Oh,
so that was his role out there. So he started talking, and so every once in a while it would show up in the news. And knowing my grandfather, who grew up here, extremely extroverted, knew everybody, just every single person, knew everything going on in town, retired military, had worked with secret communications during World War II, running the Western Union. He's about 32 years old, and he went out to the crash site, apparently. That's what he tells me. He told me in the 1980s. He said, yeah, I went out there. There was a spacecraft, and then there was a little tent off to the side, I think he said, that had 2 bodies in it. And he said they were dark skinned like I am, like a Mexican. He thought that was kind of funny. They had little silver suits on and little alchemist style kind of a skull cap. I don't know if he said they were made out of like a leather or a metallic material. He said, yeah, I saw it. I was shocked to hear this by someone, my grandfather, who, very trusted man, not the kind of person to make things up. Mm-hmm. And I kind of I tried to probe a little bit deeper. I was a teenager at the time. And I could tell, he just shut it down. He's like, that's all I know. The same thing that you heard, from the Arthur Stansel story. So yesterday, I was visiting my friend Pancho, and Pancho's in his 80s. He is the last surviving member of my grandfather's immediate circle of friends that used to hang out all the time. And I gave Pancho a copy of Weird Kingman, and I said, Pancho, did that crash really happen in 1953? He's like, of course it did. We all knew that. And Pancho's a retired nuclear engineer who worked all over the world. He's like, yeah, of course that happened. All the fellas knew it. And not something they discussed with anybody. And you'll hear these stories in passing. And it's strange that just like in August, this 1953 crash here in Kingman, which was as remarkable as Roswell, was coming up in the news again. And the only update really was that not only did they process this crash site, but that they had taken the craft itself away somewhere. There's probably alien bodies on ice somewhere, and this craft.
I wonder why they didn't just tell.
Well, think of the ramifications of telling people that there is extraterrestrial life.
Yeah.
And that is coming to this planet. And how does that impact things like society, religion, You know, it's a big thing. It's a big tell.
Yeah, and do you remember hearing the stories about the panic when radio show War of the Worlds came out and the panic it caused?
Yes.
Because
No.
people believed
I
that
didn't hear about
it
it.
was really happening. Yeah, the way they did the radio play War of the Worlds, they made it sound like a newscast, and people actually believed that aliens were invading, and it caused this huge panic.
Oh gosh.
So it's probably something similar. I wonder if that's why they decided to film
Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks.
That's
here.
what I
Out
was
here?
wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you were the whole time you were talking about the story that you were just talking about, I'm like I kind of see that scene in my head where they filmed it out there, out on Dry Lake or Red Lake, whatever.
Was
it's
it Red
called.
Lake?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they and I was like, I wonder if that's why they chose to do it there.
I wonder if that's what they really sound like too. Ack, ack. Ack, ack.
I think the crash site that's most known here is more by the Surbat Mountains.
Oh, okay.
Out north, Stockton Hill, where the Surbat Mountains are.
Okay. Oh wow.
So north of the airport.
I'm not sure.
Well, Red Lake is out off of Stockton Hill.
Yeah.
It goes.
Okay, yeah.
It'll connect with
over
Pierce
here.
Ferry.
Okay, oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes sense.
I mean, I sort of buy into that. You know, I'm a very, a lot of critical thinking about this kind of stuff, but I totally believe the Roswell and UFO stories, and that kind of affects our military and equipment, because we take these things and then we, what's the word I'm looking for? When they just study it and then they re-engineer it. De-engineering is what it calls. I think that's right. I don't know. We throw around words on this podcast that sometimes doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. And stuff like that. And I wonder where this stuff goes, like Area 51, maybe. They transport it. But how big did you say this thing was?
About 30 feet.
30 feet.
So that's an extra wide.
Yeah, so how do you transport that to, say, Area 51?
Put it upwards,
Oh, yeah.
Put it up
like
on
a-
end.
Like a
circular
saucer
thing.
So maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want to cut it out to transport it. Who knows? There's some X-Files type stuff, shit going on here. All right, so the other story, very close to here, Blackbridge.
Yes.
That's up behind here, sort of. So that used to be a place where kids used to hang out. I think it still is. That kids go up there and hang out to drink and party and stuff like that.
That's where you go to have your desert cakers.
Right.
And then 15 minutes later, the cops would show up and break it all up.
And that still goes on.
It may.
But in your book, you discussed that also, that there was a cult that was out there.
There was. I had a business in downtown Kingman. And I'd go outside at night, watching the sunset, watching the trains go by. And in the distance for weeks, I was hearing this gong go off. And it absolutely just chilled me to hear this. There was something just evil and awful about this. It just filled me with dread. And what I don't mention in the book is that when I was about 7 years old, my mother had taken myself and my brother, so my brother was 5, out with a friend of hers, and it was a newer friend. And I think it was an occult friend. Taking us out to Red Lake. And it was during daylight. And out there was a trail of stones, kind of like when you have a desert party out here at Blackbridge and you make a little trail showing everyone, hey, go this way, this is where the party's at. So there's a stone trail pointing out to what was an altar covered in sigils, and next to that altar was a gong. And I knew something was wrong about that. And I don't know why we were taken out there to look at this thing or what it was about, It just, when I heard that gong as an adult, I was like, something bad is going on out of Blackbridge. So I went out there with my ex-husband, took the truck out there, and we took Polaroid pictures. There was an altar built out there, and it's up like a little fire road. Not far off the road, there's a little, Blackbridge is a bridge that trains go over. Mm-hmm. So not far off, you go down kind of the wash road, there was a little fire road, and up this little fire road, here's all these sigils, an altar big enough to put a human on. There was no gong out there. Apparently they haul the gong away when they're not there. So I took these Polaroids, and I was friends with someone in the police department. So, and I asked him to come over and look at these pictures, there was a whole set of Polaroids, and please do something about this. This is not good. The police went out there. They destroyed all evidence of the altar. They destroyed the fire road so it couldn't be accessed anymore. You couldn't go up there anymore.
And what year was this?
Oh my goodness. What year is that?
And this here here's a picture of the altar.
It's not the altar, it's just one of the walls where there were various sigils, and one of the sigils on there is a sigil from a fictional book that was written by Aleister Crowley called the Necronomicon, and it's a sigil of Jalal, who is an incubus demon. So what are they doing out here with these incubus symbols and an altar at night? So the police destroyed this stuff. But I don't know what happened beyond that, and I never heard the gong again.
What was your theory of the police destroying it?
Well, they didn't want... If someone was out there causing harm to other people...
Yeah, doing
satanic
rituals.
They wanted to distract them from coming back up and setting up camp to do these things.
Do you remember if there was missing people in the area at the time?
Not that I'm aware of. But
I've been out there.
You've
like
been
people
out there?
go out there shooting, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like there's like obviously stuff spray painted around there too, and there was like a pentagram spray painted out there at the time that I went
this was
out
a full setup.
Yeah.
This wasn't just one.
I never saw that like that, but I mean, they did do. There is weird stuff out there anyway,
and it's creepy out there.
Yeah,
but so this was in 1996 when this happened, and well, I knew this police officer, this detective really well, and he believed that this was something that we shouldn't be having going on here, and it was not good. So they went out there and. Because there was a road, and they were bringing a gong and equipment up this fire road, up to where they built this altar. So they came in, the police department and whoever else came in, and completely demolished this little fire road. So you couldn't go up, you couldn't access this other than by foot anymore. But it's most definitely, it's the same area where kids go and party. Yeah. It's the namesake of a local bar here. You know?
Right? Yeah.
Now, was the gong like rhythmic at all? Or was it consistent, or was it like a certain time of night, so it would be like to call people out there?
As the sun was setting.
And how long would it last for? Would it be like,
Probably
like a grandfather clock chimes on it?
Right.
Well, remember back in, I think it was like the late 80s, that satanic stuff got really I remember watching
satanic panic.
I remember watching like the talk shows like Donahue and stuff, and he'd have the people on there that were into Satanism, and like they'd come on and talk about, doing their rituals and like the blood stuff, the stuff they do with blood. Like I can't remember if they were drinking blood or just like taking a lot of blood out of themselves or
Doing some kind of bloodletting ritual or something
maybe
like
it was
that.
bloodletting. Yeah. I was a kid at the time, but I was like, what is this? I mean, like I'm a small child watching it.
Well, I mean, that was a time that, there was a lot of attention to it because you had that show In Search Of. I remember watching it. Leonard Nimoy hosted it. And then you had, like, the Amityville Horror, Poltergeist, and all that stuff was coming out around that same time. So that's why there was interest in it.
Yeah, it was very popular in our media, and it was kind of a resurgence of that kind of popularity of the occult that happened in the 70s, and then again in the late 80s, early 90s, we were seeing a lot of that. A lot of television, a lot of movies, books. So is, life imitating art, or is art imitating life? Like, were we so, at this time, was everyone just so immersed in this multimedia culture that they were being influenced and convincing themselves that these things were happening? Or were these things happening and creators were creating things based on this? Like, where does that come from?
Well,
why do we see these resurgences? Just like right now, we're seeing a resurgence of people's interest in UFOs or UAPs, as we call them now.
Mm-hmm.
What's a UAP?
Unidentified anomalous phenomenon or aerial phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Because UFO has been so branded as that means spaceships and space aliens that the military now uses UAP.
Right, because that could be a military aircraft that's not, unidentified.
It could have been like those weather balloons we got from China over here.
Right. That's fascinating. I mean, my theory on it is, getting back to UFOs and stuff like that, we cannot be the only life in the universe and stuff like that.
Yeah, not for how big it is. There's no way that Earth is the only planet with life. Yeah.
And as strange as people are around here, I wouldn't, if they lived among us, it wouldn't surprise me.
If they're like third rock from the sun.
Yeah.
I used to love that show.
It's very intriguing shit. I think our minds just couldn't handle it if it was true. Like, we'd just be like...
I mean, how would that affect our politics?
Or Alf. You know how much I would love to have Alf live at my house? He was awesome.
Yeah, but they'd probably try to eat it in certain communities.
No, he'd be eating all the cats.
Maybe that's what happened in Springfield.
Alf has landed in Springfield.
I mean, he was an illegal alien, if you want to be technical about it.
He was.
Yeah.
He was a what?
He was an illegal alien.
He was a what?
Illegal alien.
He was an undocumented alien, okay.
He was illegal on the show because the X-Files people kept on, trying to come around searching for him.
Mm.
Because of that nosy neighbor.
Right.
Was that Raquel?
Arkmonikoff or whatever her name was. What was her name?
I don't remember. I
can't remember. I know. That's like my dad's favorite show. He loves Elf.
I mean, I suppose they are undocumented too.
Yeah. All of the above.
Hey. Welcome them. The other story I wanted to touch on, because we've heard this from another author that was on it, was the tunnels there downtown.
The secret Kingman tunnels.
The secret Kingman tunnels.
That don't exist, have never existed.
No, they exist, because Snow's been down there.
I've been down partially.
Not into them.
I haven't.
Where have you been down partially?
Okay, so when the hotel was open, the Brunswick.
The Brunswick.
Okay.
Yes.
And the restaurant that was right next to it, that was like when the hotel was open, people would go eat breakfast in the restaurant. Actually, they'd eat all the meals, right? Mm-hmm. Dinner too. So, two of the guys, one of my friends at the time knew like everyone in town.
Right.
He's a lot like your grandpa. So, he knew the person who owned the hotel at the time, and so we went over and talked to the people who were working in the restaurant, the cooks who were cooking, and he also knew them. This was once the restaurant was closed. And he was talking about the tunnels to them. And they're like, oh, yeah. They're like, yeah, you can go down the steps. He goes, you can't go that far in because there's no light, obviously. But yeah, I went down the steps and like a little ways in past like their storage area. And yeah.
And how far back did this go?
I didn't go in that. Like I barely
So if you would
went
have
down
been prepared
and went
with
in.
like
Yeah.
lights and stuff,
Yeah.
that would have been something.
Then I would have, I would have loved to have gone in further, but I didn't have like lights to go in there.
At the time, was it blocked off?
Yeah, I think that, you know how you're saying like there's tunnels that go all over the place. So theirs probably were blocked off.
Yes.
I believe there was a door there, but, I mean, I went down into the basement. So like, obviously that's partially because the only reason that it's blocked off is because there's now a door there, So, yeah, I didn't really get to go behind the locked door.
Okay, and in the book you discuss that in your old apartment there was a door that led to one of these tunnels.
Well, I had a very strange experience, and I lived in an old boarding house that had multiple units in it, and I think it was built in 1910 or so. So I lived upstairs. My neighbors were moving out, and they said, hey, you want to check out the basement? Like, it was a big apartment. So I go in there. All the rooms are painted different hippie colors. It's really ran down. But there's this green door in there, and it's got about 4 locks on it, and it goes to a basement. And I absolutely want to go in there.
Obviously,
I have to
right?
go in there.
I would
and
love
I
to go
asked
in
them,
there.
how long has this been locked? Because, I mean, it looked like the locks had been painted over dozens of times and stuff. They're like, I don't know. So I asked the property manager, how long has this been locked? I don't know, maybe decades. Who knows? Who cares? Like, nobody cares about this locked, stupid door. You want to go in there? Go ahead. So I go in to take the locks off, have my brother come over. My brother Carlos brings a lockpick kit, unlocks the doors in 3 seconds. And we go in there, and we just have, and it's just the two of us, we just have a lighter. And I think he's got like a little pen light or something. And he's got a Zippo lighter, and we go in through this little narrow, kind of little antechamber, and it's got some shelves on the side. And we get past that into this basement, and the air is so cool and clean, and this place is so it just feels good in there and clean. And we're looking around with this little pen light and stuff, and there's the most magnificent, amazing antique furniture in there. Some of it is half draped with cloth. There's this beautiful brass bird cage in the corner, and I'm absolutely obsessed with antiques at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, the most beautiful furniture that looks like it's from the late 1800s to maybe early 1920s. So we're looking around, and so my neighbors have moved out, and my brother starts burning himself with a lighter. We got to get out of here. Let's come back tomorrow and really check this out. I'll bring equipment. Kind of like when you're down in this tunnel and you didn't have a light, so you only go so far and you come back out. So I'm so hyped about this basement. And the other thing is that at the end of this basement, there's a big door. It's a big green door, wooden door. It's all brick around it. And it leads out, this door leads out under the sidewalk and the roadway. And this door is wide enough for a man and a horse to walk through. It's substantial. So we're going back in there the next day. There's no doubt about it. So I go to the property manager and I sign a lease agreement because I have to get back in here. I am going to contact the owner. I am going to buy these antiques. I have to have this stuff. And we also have to go see what this door has, what's behind the door. So we go back in the next night. My brothers, we've got headlamps, we've got buckets, we've got wheelbarrows. We have everything. We've got high-powered torch flashlights. We go back in here, and right as we're going through that first little bit of that antechamber hallway, we can't breathe. We're choking. We're putting our shirts over our faces and stuff. It's like, it's just stagnant in here. You can't breathe in here, and it's dusty. And when we enter that basement again, there isn't any antique furniture. There are piles of old bags of cement, some of them as high as 6 feet tall, a lot of them broken, busted open. And it's just, there's, in the corner, there's remnants, bits and pieces of brass from what was likely that bird cage that sat in the corner gleaming and new the night before. Bits of trash. There is no green door. There is just a solid block wall. And now I've signed up to live in this place. And so the place turns out to be very haunted, and I move out eventually. But on top of this, I was, so I have a business downtown at the time, and I talked to my neighbors. And I start asking around about these tunnels. Like, I need to know about these tunnels. And a lot of the good old boys in town were like, there's no such thing. There was a couple of steam tunnels. Nothing of the sort exists. But my own stepfather had been down in the tunnels under the Beale. And he was kind of a little scavenger, went places he wasn't supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And he brought home 2 beautiful, ornate, silver and jade opium pipes that he had found down there. And he's like, oh, the tunnels go way far back. This must have been in like the early 80s before they had blocked it off completely. And he had gone for some considerable distance under the Beale until he met like a grate or fence or something blocking from coming out the other side onto a roadway. Mm-hmm. So on top of this, I'm asking around. No one really wants to tell us anything. But one of my neighbors, who at the time was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I just remember, one of my business neighbors said, I asked him about it, because I'd been in his basements and stuff like that before. But he had told me a story about one day his parking lot had completely caved in, a sinkhole. And as he looked down into this sinkhole, there were dozens and dozens of cots down there. Cots for sleeping on, and remnants of Chinese clothing and shoes, and just, assorted ephemera. And within the hour, some of the good old boys in town had showed up with 6 dump trucks full of sand to fill it all in. Mm-hmm. He had no say in the matter. I mean, you would think if you saw something like that, you would call anthropologist in or someone to
no kidding,
right? This is of historic importance, whether or not it's positive. And it's not up to them to hide this from us as a community, right?
I don't understand why they didn't turn that into like a museum of sorts. Like, that is good historical stuff.
Do you want to have a museum that celebrates that we were essentially a sunset town, a sundowner town.
Okay, but not celebrating it, but to teach, like, right. But this is what we shouldn't do.
Do you think that descendants of people who cause these atrocities upon others want that to be remembered about their town?
Yeah, it's more so than...
We're talking about descendants of the town founders who do not want you to know how poorly they treated minorities in
That's
Kingman.
what I'm saying. But they did that, and
to hide that.
I realized that, right, but I mean, they actually did it too. I mean, like, they treated the Chinese workers bad and whatnot. Like, I think that it should be like, like a history thing, like a museum.
What year was this railroad being built in town? Did you know that?
I thought it was like the 1800s.
It was the late 1800s.
Okay, late 1800s. Yes. So what we're saying is there was still slavery going on in Kingman in the late 1800s.
Well, you most certainly were not allowed to be out on the street after sunset if you were not white. So if you were Wallapai, if you were black, if you were Mexican, if you were Chinese, you were not allowed on the streets.
That's why it was called a sundowner town.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe it's just, I really love museums. Like, it's kind of like my favorite museum is the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. That does not teach stuff that is favorable to
no, absolutely.
To white folks,
it's a part of our history we should be hiding.
Yeah.
That we should be preserving.
Yeah, it's important to learn that stuff. In my opinion. So I'm
but Kingman does try to disassociate itself from
they
that.
try to just brush everything under the rug or fill it in with sand, I suppose, you know? Like
But given filling in with sand though, couldn't you report that to someone? Like some federal agency and be like, hey, well, you know, because what good old boys would have the authority to override?
Well, they didn't just fill it in with sand; they redid the blacktop afterwards too. So,
yeah, we could dig it up again.
What is there to see?
I don't know. We'd have to.
They're like nothing to see here.
Who do you contact for that?
You see this little device? This is mobile. We can go down there. We can get like a little tanks of oxygen.
How are we going to get in?
Flashlights.
There was an entrance in one of the buildings, and that was sealed over many years ago.
There's got to be a way in.
When I first came here, though, I heard about the whole underground. They called it an underground city. They're like, there's basically a city underneath here.
Well, think about it. This was a mining community, and what do miners do? They make tunnels. Like there's substantial tunnels and old mine shafts that we have in this area. We had the technology to do that back then, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. We had dynamite.
How far do these tunnels stretch, supposedly?
Well, I was told that some of the tunnels stretched all the way from where the Beale Hotel is in downtown, all the way and came up as far as where the cemetery is. On the top of the hill, uptown. That's what I had been told many years ago by someone. So that's quite a distance. We're talking like...
You mean the cemetery off of Stockton Hill?
Yes.
All the way out there?
Yes.
Wow.
Someone had said that there used to be a tunnel that ran from the Beale all the way up and came out by the cemetery. That's quite a distance. It's what?
Yeah.
Miles.
Well, I mean, it's maybe 2 miles from here. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess if you went direct from, you know.
If you went direct and it went direct and it didn't like do a whole bunch of like
turns.
I don't think it would probably be follow Route 66.
You're right. It probably would be technically like 2 miles or whatnot.
That's still a lot.
But
from back then.
I mean that's a lot to go blasting dynamite through there to make this giant tunnel. I mean,
jeez,
that stretches that far.
So I don't know whether or not that's true that we had tunnels running that far, but most certainly in downtown.
There's definitely stuff down there, though. Yes. I mean, they used to do basements and stuff like that back in the day. I mean,
so what's the key to unlocking the truth behind this mystery?
I don't know how you would. I mean,
I wonder if anybody's brought it up to like the city council.
I don't know. I just think it'd be really cool if they did something with it and could provide like historical tours, because they even do that like in Seattle. I had really a good time on the Seattle Underground.
Right, because like if there's a cinder block walls down there, couldn't you just take out a few of the cinder blocks and like send a drone down there with like lights and a camera on it and just run a drone through it?
Well, I've only gotten as far as jumping up and down on the sidewalk and noticing that it feels kind of hollow down there. That's about as far as I got with it.
And where's that?
At the old boarding house where I saw the big door. The sidewalk out front of it.
Is that the one like out in front of the Central Commercial, and you can see like they used to have the lights underneath?
No,
it
but
or whatnot.
no. This was
Okay.
a residential house down on this side of Kingman. But
Okay.
I've been in that basement down there in Central
Oh,
Commercial.
Okay.
It is amazing. It is gigantic, and there's this cement, or there used to be. It almost looked like a stage in there, and you could go all the way to the front and look up through the lights of that glass under there.
Yeah.
Just incredible. It would be it's cost prohibitive and couldn't be restored to use for something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
amazing.
that's how I found out about, because I was asking somebody about the glass block or whatnot. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, there's like a whole city under
That's
here.
where my grandmother worked as a teenager, stamping cigarettes with the tax stamp was under those lights in that basement.
And so the place you're talking about that you had rented and was haunted, is it that rock building on
We're
Spring?
going to go by there. We're going to go by the house, I'm telling you. You and I are going to go by there.
Okay, because I'm like,
we're going to go on a Weird Kingman tour together.
yes, yes.
But how that ties into your book was there's a lot of paranormal activity that goes around these tunnels, right? Too, by the
There
slaves.
certainly seems to be. When I was living in this house, I was seeing ghosts of Chinese workers that were in these very simple kind of dark blue linen uniform with the little hat on. I had to retrieve bits and pieces of shoes and jackets in that basement itself.
And even the way that you described when you wrote about their jackets and the loop,
With the little frog buttons on them.
Yes.
Yes.
But I'm like, that is so much what they're like. Looking at old clothing from that
Yes.
period, that's what it looks like.
I mean, it was completely deteriorating, but it was very clear what it was.
Right.
And why would it be there? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things that I'm like, I think you're a really good writer. I love your descriptive, all the descriptions you do in each of the stories. I'm like, I could see this. Like,
Well, because it's me remembering and recalling this for you.
Right. I mean, but you're very good at
Thank you.
writing it out and presenting it to somebody who has no idea, Like, it's very easy to see.
Well, I wrote this book so that my grandchildren would know the stories of Kingman, these weird paranormal stories that I'd experienced in Kingman. So I hope they read them someday.
Yes, it works.
Yeah. And where can they find this book?
You can find this book by going to weirdkingman.com. It will take you directly to Amazon to buy this as a Kindle, paperback, or hardcover. I do sometimes put the ebook up for free. It's up for free through midnight tonight, actually. It's been free all weekend. But yeah, weirdkingman.com.
WeirdKingman.com.
Check it out.
Yeah, and we'd love to sit here and go through every single story, but we want to save something for the readers to read.
I mean, the point of this is to promote the book, okay?
Right.
So please go
Not
out.
to get all our questions answered.
And if you're a fan of Stephen King and stuff like that, you'll be into this. Fan of the occult, creepy stories, you'll enjoy this book very much. And to know that these are true stories is just kind of mind-blowing. So thank you. And the last question, we'll end on this. Do you think the brain aneurysm has any kind of connection to all this?
Does the brain aneurysm have any connection to this? Well, the brain aneurysm itself caused me to have a spiritually transformative experience last year in which I was taken to a realm where I was connected with all there is in the universe, and I experienced this sense of eternal joy, bliss, and unconditional love, and a connection to all there is and all that will ever be. And there's many labels for that sort of thing, but it's kind of brought me full circle from Lewis Kingman Park and my mother being chased by a UFO in the 1970s, to me being at Lewis Kingman Park a year ago from tomorrow and having this near-death experience, which led to writing this book, essentially. I would have never gotten out of my comfort zone had I not had this experience. I'm very behind-the-scenes type of person. I don't talk to people about things like this. And that near-death experience pushed me out of that and pushed me into sharing these things with other people for the first time in my life. So whether or not that has anything to do with why I experienced all this paranormal stuff in Kingman, I'm not sure what the root cause of that is. But it's interesting to me that it has cycled full circle and that now I'm sitting here with the two of you.
Exactly a year later.
We're totally lucky. I mean, to get to...
That's kind of weird.
I know.
So this is my
kind of cool
near-death anniversary.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you could celebrate it with me.
And I'm glad you are here
and my
to do
6
this with
weeks
us.
since I had major brain surgery.
Yeah.
So
you couldn't even tell. I wouldn't be able to tell. I'm like, wow.
I can show you my scar.
Oh, wow.
See that?
Whoa.
I have this big, lovely warrior scar on the left side of my head now.
Wear it with pride.
I do. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here, and we encourage everybody to check out weirdkingdom.com, get a copy of this book, read it. It's a great read.
You'll love it.
Yes. And we hope you become a friend of the podcast and do this some more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, y'all. So we'll wrap this episode up. All right.
Bye, y'all.
All right, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye. Give the ears a break.
There's my grandma's in the book.
Okay, cool. I love old pictures.
Me too.
Oh, she's so pretty. That's so cool. I know, I try to get my...
And I have an entire collection of her artwork. Somehow keeps
she's
gravitating.
the one that does
Kingman's Grandma Moses.
Grandma Moses, yes. I was going to ask you too about the story with the park where the kids go and camp at the park. Is that Metcalf? Did it used to have a different name?
It's the park over by the junior high, Fireman's Park, that used to be called Waimanua.
Oh, okay.
So it was originally named after like.
Because I thought you meant
Wallapai.
when that was the junior high, so I was like, I would think it would be Metcalf, but then
over by the skate park. The skate park. It's a skate park now.
Okay, I didn't.
It used to have a big
a...
wooden structure there.
Okay.
That was like a wooden castle, and it was way up high off the ground. And if you're a teenager, like the police didn't know if you were up there, you know.
And
on
of
the
course,
weekend,
you want to go stay there with
party
your friends,
and hang out there, take your sleeping bags.
How cool! Why did they ruin all the cool stuff in Kingman? They close off the tunnels. They get rid of the castle.
There's got to be like some kind of like an old map of that tunnel somewhere.
There's got to be what?
Like a map of that tunnel.
There isn't, unless I bet the good old boys have that stuff. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, they probably hid that shit.
No,
probably like Dunton.
You know who we got have
the
to
Dunton family.
You know who we have to get in on this conversation?
100%.
Because he is, was. Right? I think both of them are dead now, right? The old man's... I think old man's dead, too.
That's exactly who I'm talking about.
We need to get Jim Hinckley in on this conversation.
He's a total racist, though. I mean, I remember...
When he had gone to Washington as like a esteemed guest for some Eusebio Kino Mexican something celebration.